Good morning, boys and girls. I hope that you all are well and welcome to another geography lesson. For today's lesson, we are going to be doing types of farming. We first have to go through corrections for last week's activities. So your first question was where you had to classify the food items either in the plants column or the animals column depending on where they came from. If you have the picture correct and you stuck it in the correct column, you will put a tick next to the picture. However, if you have the answer incorrect, you will put a cross next to the picture and you will take your pencil and you will write the food item under the correct column. For example, if you put the cheese picture in the plants column instead of the animal column, all you have to do is put a cross next to the picture of the cheese, and in your animals column, you will write in pencil cheese. Okay, let's get started. The first thing that we have is the bowl of cereals, which will go under your plants column. Then we have the cheese, which goes under the animals column, the rice, which comes from plants, the milk, which comes from animals, the lettuce, which comes from plants, and lastly, the eggs, which come from animals. So we will see that our cheese and our milk is what we get from our cow, and the eggs will come from our chickens. Your next activity came from your textbook on page 49, which was activity 2. And you only needed to answer question number 2. It said, look at the photographs on this page and on page 48. Put the number of each picture in the correct column. The first one has been done for you. So you had to draw the table just as it is in your textbook, in your book, with the titles Buying Food, Growing Plants and Keeping Animals, Collecting and Hunting Wild Food. And then you had to look at the number of each picture and put them in the correct column. Okay. Under our buying food column, you needed to have number 1, number 6, and number 11. If you got all 3 correct, you can put a tick above the numbers. In our growing plants and keeping animals column, you needed to have numbers 2, 3, 5, 8, 9, and 12. If you do not have any of these numbers, that is okay. All you have to do is write them in pencil. And in the last column, you needed to have numbers 4, 7, and 10. Okay, well done, children. Let's move on to today's lesson. For today's lesson, I have a question for you all. It says, if you had a farm, would you grow crops only for yourself and for your family, or would you grow crops to sell? And what crops would you grow on your farm? We will now watch a video on 2 different types of farming, and then we will discuss the video thereafter. Based on our video, we saw that there were two different types of farming, subsistence farming and commercial farming. Now, they gave us a whole lot of information about subsistence farming, and we are going to recap on what was in the video. So, subsistence farming is farming for yourself and for your family only. So you are not farming for big corporations and big companies. You are only farming for yourself and for your family. You can plant a variety of crops, but in a small amount. For example, you may want to grow tomatoes and lettuce and carrots, but you are only growing them in small amounts, small quantities. You're not growing fields and fields of tomatoes and carrots and lettuce. It's just a small amount that it will be enough for your family and for yourself. The crops that you grow is eaten by you and your family. You keep a small amount of cattle for meat and other food products such as milk. So the meat that you have comes from the animals that you are keeping in your farm. Maybe you have a few cows and you have a few sheep and a few goats and even a few chickens that you will get your eggs from. So you keep this a small amount of cattle for yourself so that you can get all these meat products. The family are the ones that do the farming. So there are no workers that you have that does the farming for you. Your family is the one that does the farming. And you don't have the best equipment to do the farming like big tractors and irrigation systems. You are doing it all on your own. It's all like manual labor that you have to do. Now I'm going to play for you all the part of the video based on the commercial farming, and then we will be discussing that after. Based on the video, we can now see the difference between the subsistence and the commercial farming. The commercial farming is farming that is done to make a profit. So you want to make money out of your farm. That is what the commercial farm is for. So you're not just farming for yourself or for your family. You are farming to sell to companies and to big corporations so that you can make money from them. Only one type of crop is grown. This is known as cash crop. So when you grow your one type of crop, for example, you are only going to grow corn. So you will grow fields and fields of corn and you will sell this corn to the different companies. So this is known as cash crop because you are making money off the crop that you are growing. They sell these crops to shops and manufacturing companies. For example, if you have the wheat plant, you will then sell it to manufacturing companies that will change it into bread or into cereal. Commercial farms are much bigger to grow more crops to make more money. So you have a larger field so that you can grow more crops, and the more crops you get, the more money you will make from your crops. Farmers hire laborers to do the work. So your laborers are the workers on the farm. So you have the head farmer, the person that is in charge, the person that owns the farm, and then they hire other people to work on the farm for them. These are the laborers. They have modern machinery for their crops, such as tractors and harvesters. So they have huge tractors, they have harvesters that will remove the crops from the ground. They even have irrigation systems. Some people have like flying irrigation system that will water the entire field for them instead of having people do it for them or them doing it themselves. They have machinery to do it for them. Now we'll be looking at the difference between the subsistence and the commercial farming. So we have our factors. The factors is what we are relating to our subsistence farm and our commercial farm. So we'll start off with the land size. The land size is how big or small the area that the farm sits on and that their crops are growing on. So in a subsistence farm, it's a small plot of land because they're not growing for everyone, it's just for them and their family, so they don't need a large space to live and to grow their crops. In a commercial farm, it's a large plot of land. So it's really huge because they need to have fields and fields and fields of the crops growing in order to make money from the crops. Next, they have labor type. Labor type is the workers that they have, who they have working on their farm. So in a subsistence farm, you have the family members that are doing the work. So the people that are part of your family, they are working on your farm. Whereas in a commercial farm, you hire workers. So you get people to do the work for you. Then we have capital cost. Capital cost refers to the amount of money that it's going to cost you. So in a subsistence farm, you have a low capital cost. This means that the amount of money that you're putting into your farm is going to be much lower. It's not as much because you're only growing a small amount of different crops and you only have a small amount of cattle. Maybe if you need to buy food for the cattle, you're not buying for thousands of sheep and thousands of cows. You're only buying for a small amount. So the amount of money that you're putting into your farm is much lower. Whereas in a commercial farm, it's a high capital input. This means that you are going to put in a lot more money into your farm because you have a whole lot of cattle and you have fields and fields of crops that need to be watered and taken care of. So you're obviously going to put in more money into a farm that has a larger land. Then you get the type of fertilizers. Now, fertilizers are added to the soil to give your soil nutrients to help your crops grow better. So in a subsistence farm, you have natural fertilizers. Natural fertilizers means that it's not made by anyone. You can make your own natural fertilizers, such as when you make compost, you use the eggshells, or you use like lettuce, like small pieces of lettuce or tomato that's left behind, and you mix it in your soil. Or they use animal dung, which is the feces that will be used as fertilizer. Example from a cow. Then you get in a commercial farm, they have chemical fertilizers. Now, chemical fertilizers are fertilizers that are made by different companies. So it's not coming straight from the source. For example, the eggshells, they are making it or manufacturing it in a company or in a warehouse. Then we have the tools and the machines. Now, in a subsistence farm, they use traditional tools and machines. For example, maybe they'll have a slasher to remove the wheat, or they will manually go and remove the crops from the ground because they don't need a huge machinery to do it because it's just a small plot of land that they are working on. Whereas in a commercial farm, they have high technology tools and machines. This is because they have large fields of crops, so they need to be able to cover that amount of crops. So they'll have, when they're doing the irrigation, they will have irrigation systems that hover over the land so that you are able to sprinkle water over all your crops. Or they use tractors to harvest your crop so that it's removed instead of one person going and physically removing each crop and knowing you have fields and fields of it. With a tractor, it will be much faster. Then we have our level of technology. Now, in a subsistence farm, you have a low level of technology. So technology will refer to the type of machinery that you are using. So obviously in a subsistence farm, you don't need high levels of technology because you are only dealing with a small plot of land and you are not selling it to different companies where you need to be maybe in contact with them. So you need to have the best internet connection and the best type of phone so that you can get into contact with people so that you can sell your products. Instead, they may have a cell phone, but it's not going to be for them to like contact big corporations. It's probably going to be for them to contact their family members. Whereas in a commercial farm, they need to have a good network system going. They need to have good technology such as cell phones or a telephone so that they can get into contact with their companies that they are going to sell their products to. And they need to have good machinery so that they are able to harvest their crops better and to plant their crops so that they can have the crops ready in time for it to be sold. Lastly, we have the output. The output for the subsistence farm is for our own use, or for own use. So the output refers to, in the end, what's going to come out of it. So for the subsistence farm, it's for their own use, it's for themselves to eat. Whereas in a commercial farm, it's for sale. So they are going to sell it to other companies. Growing food in towns and cities. So towns and cities refers to the places that we are staying in. People in towns and cities usually grow their own food to help them save money. So, for example, if you are spending a lot of money on fruits and vegetables, and on top of that, you have other expenses such as your lights and water, people now are going to look for a different way in which they can start saving money. So, they will decide now we have our backyard and we can start planting our own fruits and vegetables. They may have small plants or vegetable gardens that they use. For example, in your backyard, maybe you would want to grow tomatoes or a lemon tree or curry leaf, things like that people will want to grow that they probably use like on a daily basis. This food is much healthier and better for the environment as no pesticides are used on them. So, in large farms, people spray pesticides. Now, pesticides is a chemical that is going to help the plant not attract any insects to attack them or to get eaten. So, no worms will grow into it. So, now in your own little garden, you're not going to go and spray pesticides to ensure that no insects get onto them, because as soon as they grow, you take them and you are going to wash them. Now in the farms, you have this large plot of land all the time. Now it's difficult to go and check on each plant to go and grow them. So they will spray all the crops at once with pesticides to help them last longer and so that the insects don't get into them. Whereas at home, you are checking on your own plants all the time because it's a small garden that you have. However, there is a downfall to growing your own crops because there are food items which cannot be grown or cultivated at home and therefore need to be bought from shops, such as corn and cauliflower, cheese, and milk. Now, due to time constraints and space, corn is a type of vegetable that needs a large space in order for it to grow. And cauliflower takes a very, very, very long time to grow. So you cannot grow these types of vegetables in your own backyard. Cheese and milk, you can't keep a cow in your backyard and then start milking the cow for milk. No, you will have to buy the milk from the shop. We are now going to be playing a short memory game. It states, remember the placement of the commercial farming objects below. We have the tractor, the field with wheat, people working on the land, and we have money. I need you all to remember where these objects are placed and in which block they are for our next slide. If we take a look at our screen now, you can see that I have covered it with blocks with letters of the alphabet on it. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I. Now you need to remember where the pictures of the commercial farming objects were and under which block they are placed. I'm now going to remove the blocks that had the answers and you're going to see whether y'all got them correct. So the tractor was under block A. Very good if you got it correct. The land of wheat was under block C. The people working on the farm were under block E. And lastly, our money was under block G. So if you had the answers A, C, E, and G, that means you got them all correct. Well done, learners. You should give yourself a big round of applause. We have now reached your favorite part of every lesson, which is yours homework. So in your work pack, you will cut out the notes on page 13 and on page 15. And then you will complete the activities for Tuesday and on Wednesday. And for Wednesday's activity of drawing the farm, I want you to use an entire page to draw your farm, and it must be neat and it must be colored. Please be creative. It is a fun activity for you all to do. Okay, learners, we have now come to the end of our geography lesson for today. I hope you all enjoyed it and you all learned something. I cannot wait to see you all again. Goodbye, learners.